Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Together we will chant Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verses 1 to 10.
अथ नवमोऽध्यायः श्रीभगवानुवाच इदं तु ते गुह्यतमम् प्रवक्ष्याम्यनसूयवे ज्ञानं विज्ञानसहितम् यज्ञात्वा मोक्ष्यसे शुभात् राजविद्या राजगुह्यम् पवित्रमिदमुत्तमम् प्रत्यक्षावगमम् धर्म्यम् सुसुखम् कर्तुमव्ययम् अश्रद्दधानाः पुरुषाः धर्मस्यास्य परन्तप अप्राप्य मां निवर्तन्ते मृत्युसंसारवर्त्मनि मया ततमिदं सर्वम् जगदव्यक्तमूर्तिना मत्स्थानि सर्वभूतानि न चाहं तेष्वस्थितः न च मत्स्थानि भूतानि पश्य मे योगमैश्वरम् भूतभृन्न च भूतस्थः ममात्मा भूतभावनः यथाकाशस्थितो नित्यम् वायुः सर्वत्र गोमहान् तथा सर्वाणि भूतानि मत्स्थानीत्युपधारय सर्वभूतानि कौन्तेय प्रकृतिं यान्ति मामिकाम् कल्पक्षये पुनस्तानि कल्पादौ विसृजाम्यहम् प्रकृतिं स्वामवष्टभ्य विसृजामि पुनः पुनः भूतग्राममिमं कृत्स्नम् अवशं प्रकृतेर्वशात् न च मां तानि कर्माणि निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय उदासीनवदासीनम् असक्तं तेषु कर्मसु मयाध्यक्षेण प्रकृतिः सूयते सचराचरम् हेतुनानेन कौन्तेय जगद्विपरिवर्तते
We have some questions here today. Surender Nagarajan, Hari Om. chapter 9, verse 2, in the explanation, it is given that your conscience directs you towards the self within. It guides you on the righteous path until you realize the self. With the support of your conscience, your efforts take you to the spiritual path easily. A lot of ease and comfort in this path. Question is, what is conscience and how is it different from intellect and intuition? Okay, what is conscience? Conscience is the layman's way of speaking about a technical term called the subtle intellect. Intellect means discrimination. Every human being is born with an intellect, just like every human being is born with a capacity to speak. So you just have it because you're a human being, like every bird has the capacity to fly, like that. Right? So what is this intellect? Intellect, buddhi, only means your capacity to tell something apart from something. Discrimination, to tell that this is tall or short, good or bad, or day or night, friend or enemy. Your capacity to tell two things apart, that is known as the intellect, buddhi, discrimination. Okay. Now, this discrimination can be applied to the world, right? So, you know day from night, tall from short, and blah, blah, blah. You also know nuclear physics. You can tell. You can discriminate there too. You know genetic engineering. It's all discrimination going on, right? So you can apply this capacity of discrimination within the realm of the world, all the way from the most basic discrimination, day and night, to the highest discrimination, such as physics or I don't know what, anything, nanotechnology, whatever, highest realms of nuclear physics or wherever it is in the world you want to apply it, right? So you have the whole range from basic to the top. This capacity for discrimination can also be applied to another pair of opposites which our intellect is capable of understanding, which is the world, whole world, and something beyond the world. This capacity in us to assess that the possibility of something beyond. Okay, that's a discrimination too. World, not world. So that's a discrimination. This capacity is also an inherently human thing. In fact, it's only humans have it. Animals and birds have some amount of discrimination, very, very basic, of course, but they have it. But a subtle intellect is only available to a human being. The discrimination between the world and not world. This subtle intellect is known by the layman as the conscience, because the conscience is what leads you to that eventual discrimination. Everybody is born with an equal subtle intellect. Everybody has it. Nobody has any difference as far as that goes. Okay, so what is conscience and how is it different from intellect? So conscience refers to your subtle intellect. It's different from the intellect in the sense that intellect itself can be gross, which means discrimination in the world, all the way up to the highest possible discrimination, and subtle, which means between the world and not world. Okay, so far so good, Surender?
Yes, ma'am. What about intuition?
Yeah, I'm coming there. What is intuition? Intuition is digested knowledge. When you have understood something so well that it's just completely clear, then such knowledge will flash back to you in what you will refer to as intuition. Try and think of it something like, you're walking in your home at night. You don't bump into anything, right? Because you know it very well. But if you're walking in somebody else's home at night, you'll keep bumping into something or the other. So intuition is digested knowledge. Like a doctor can have intuition about a patient. The patient just walked into the room. The doctor can say, "Oh, I think he's got tuberculosis." How does he know? Just by walking into the room, somebody walked into the room. How does he know that? Digested knowledge. So intuition happens in the area of digested knowledge. It's completely digested. You got it. Then you don't think about it. You just know it. That's why you find many pure people also have this so-called intuition, because they've understood about life, right? So therefore, they know they can tell you what's going to happen. I mean, don't take it like they're not making predictions of the future. It's not, don't understand it in that very superstitious way. But it's digested knowledge. It'll come back as a flash. So is that clear? So conscience directs you to the self within, because um, that's what the subtle intellect does. It stands there like a compass, telling you this is towards the self and this is towards the world, this is away from the
Understood, ma'am. Thanks.
self. Alright. Second question, verse 4, all beings dwell in me. Question, please explain with examples other than waves and ocean, ghost and post, waking and dreaming state. Surendra, you were spoken about in Bhajagovindam, where he said, Vyartham kupyasi maya sahishnaho. Vyartham. Unnecessarily are you getting angry with me? These are not comprehensible concepts, Surendra. That's why you're struggling with it so much. The explanation also says that there exists nothing but Brahman. Question. Please explain as we see the world which is also real. Okay, so all beings dwell in me means, okay, I can't give what? Waves and ocean, ghost and post, waking and dreaming. Okay, so how about fish and ocean? Can I give that? How? Brahman is everywhere, right? So when Brahman is everywhere, whatever exists has to be in Brahman. So all beings dwell in me.
Okay, ma'am.
Huh? Okay, let's try India. India is everywhere. I mean, in India. So Bombay, Delhi, Calcutta, Madras, Indore, Hyderabad, that's all in India. So all beings dwell in me. So all these cities, says India, is in me. Because it's all pervading, right? India, within its borders, is all pervading, right? Within its borders. So anything in India dwells in India. Like that. Okay?
Okay.
There exists nothing but Brahman. How can you say that when we are seeing a world? It is like looking at pots and saying there exists nothing but clay there. You're seeing Nama Rupa, you're seeing name and form, but what is really there is only clay. So you're seeing a vast multitude of beings, you're seeing a vast collection of things, but it's all inherently made of the same divine stuff. It is like many physicists can say, right? The whole world is nothing but electrons, protons, neutrons. Then you can't tell them, what do you mean it's all electrons, protons, neutrons? I can see the laptop, I can see Shilpa, I can see Usha, I can see Anita, I can see Manoj, I can see the door, the window, the fan, the books. I can see it all. What are you saying? It's all electrons, neutrons, protons. So what will they say? Yes, of course, you can see all of this, but all of this is nothing but inherently electrons, protons, neutrons. Is that clear, Surendra?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Karan, Hari Om. How do we make our Shraddha stronger? Currently, it is more devotional, as in I believe because the Lord says it. What can we practically do to keep reflecting, contemplating while performing action? How do we make our Shraddha stronger? Currently, it is more devotional. I believe it because the Lord says it. What can we practically do to keep reflecting, contemplating while performing action? How do we make our Shraddha stronger? Currently, it is more devotional. If it is devotional, you should pat yourself on the back. It's a good thing it is devotional. Because if you really think about it, we as we exist today, inherently, what am I? I'm really my mind, isn't it? If my mind itself is imbued with the feelings of the Lord, then what more do I want? I just have to have that feeling with me all the time. The person, the personality is the mind. Whatever the mind is the person. Now I always say, oh, all this time you told us intellect, now suddenly it's become mind. It's not suddenly become mind. You are the mind. The intellect is what must direct that mind. You are the mind. The intellect directs the mind. The mind is the kind of person you are, good, bad, ugly, whatever it is. And if the mind is filled with the Lord, then now what else do you want? All you have to do is direct it correctly. That's all that's left to do. Think of it like this. The car inherently, when you talk about a car, the car inherently is the engine, right? And what is the use of the steering wheel? The steering wheel can only direct it. But the power, the capacity of the car, its movement is dependent on the mind. So if the engine is of a Maruti 800, then what is the steering wheel going to do? Isn't it? The steering wheel will make the 800 go as well as that engine can go. It doesn't matter if the body is Rolls Royce, but the car will go according to that engine, right? So like that, our mind is inherently us. Okay? Now this bit, which is us, has got huge power, huge potential, huge capability. But if it is not directed properly, this capacity will kill us. It's like you have a Ferrari engine. If you don't direct that, if the steering wheel is not in place, that Ferrari engine will do what to you and to everybody else, God alone knows. So you're saying my engine is got the power of the Lord. Then what else do you want now? That's it. All you have to do is allow that thing, let your intellect direct every action towards that power. Whatever, that's so that's all we need to do. That remember, this is all the Lord. I run my business, I make a house for somebody. Who am I making that house for? I'm making it for the Lord. I'm getting somebody to make that house. Who are the people who are making the house? They are the Lord. So then you start directing it. Just keep directing it. As you keep directing it, the personality will flower out. You will become more and more capable of remembering the Lord, and the knowledge will unfold. Because what is knowledge and what is ignorance? At the end of the day, what is knowledge? Knowledge is only unselfish. Whatever else you know or you don't know, if you don't have unselfishness, means you're not able to identify with other people. You're not able to think beyond yourself and have no knowledge. So why are the great people great? What makes them great? They have a vision beyond themselves. So if you were to be, take Lodha for instance. Now, I don't know if this is true or not. I'm making up this story. Okay. Lodha, suppose, says that I'm giving Karan an example from real estate because he's in real estate. So he suppose Lodha thinks, I want to make a lot of money. Okay, he will function in a particular way. But if he thinks like India needs more smart cities and I'm going to make a smart city, his whole picture will change. Not only will he do something that he will be remembered for way after he's gone, but his journey itself will be very pleasurable to him. But if he thinks, I want to make a lot of money, okay, then the journey itself will be very agitating because every time something happens to let him make less money, he will start crying and he will leave no footprints in the sands of time, as it were, because he won't be able to achieve to his capacity. So when you remember the Lord, it's basically you cover everything with the Lord. You know what they say in Bhakti? They say, Rang de chunariya. Color it all with the Lord. When you color it with the Lord, and it's the Lord of your heart, you love that Lord, then you love everybody. And you're doing it for them. It's no longer about you anymore. That's knowledge. So everything you study is only to bring you to the point where you understand this is not about me. So how do you make our Shraddha stronger? In the case that you have given, it is using this power that the mind has of being devotional towards performing action. I'm saying action because your question is pertaining to action. So you perform the action with this power and you do amazing things in this world.
Thank you.
Meera, when you say someone is a conscientious person, what exactly does this mean? Meera, when did I say someone is a conscientious person?
No, ma'am. It's my question.
Okay, when you say someone is a
No,
conscientious
general.
okay, but Meera, then whoever says it, you have to ask that person because that person will define that word for you. What do they mean when they are conscientious? But conscientious means that you consider your duty more important than yourself. That's what it means. Whatever you're supposed to do, you consider it more important than yourself. That means you are willing to put yourself through inconvenience to do whatever it is you think you ought to do. That is what it generally means. But whoever said this, you must ask him. So that's one of the things you're going to learn on Thursdays. For all those who come to Thursday, please come to Thursday. I really hope everybody comes to Thursday class, because I have a fond hope that everybody attends Thursday class. Friday, Saturday, Sunday will go very easy. But now let us see how that works. So conscientious means that you put the action above yourself. Therefore, you do it properly. Varsha. So Varsha. So we have to work to strengthen the intellect, purify the mind. Varsha, you were part of the editing team of the book. Do you remember the chapter which said there are two things in this world which a human being has to do? Purify the mind, strengthen the intellect. Isn't it? So I'm not sure what your question is, if there is a question. There is a question mark, so I'm assuming there's a question. But that's it, right? That's all a human being can do. What else can a human being do? He can purify his mind, he can strengthen his intellect. If he does these two things, he will reach the state of thoughtlessness. And then if you reach thoughtlessness, there's nothing you can do. Then the Lord says, March Sucha, don't worry. Once you reach thoughtlessness, now you don't worry. Now that's his job, not your job anymore. That was during Karan's question. All right, so let's get on with it then. Where were we? Verse 4. Please listen to this carefully because it's going to be a bit of a full toss from now on. Verse 4 said, Maya tatamidam sarvam. Maya, by me, tatamidam sarvam. I'm pervaded all of this. Jagat avyakta murtina. This jagat, this word, avyakta murtina. Avyakta in the unmanifest form. That means the manifestation which you are seeing, what is a manifestation? Body, mind, intellect, you can take it as actions, emotions, and thoughts. You can take it as objects and beings. What is a manifested thing? Anything that can be contacted with your senses or your mind or your intellect is called a manifested thing. Okay, your body will contact color and form, taste, smell, touch. Your body contacts all this. Your mind contacts emotion, feelings, anger, greed, hate, jealousy, what contacts. What does your intellect do? It contacts thoughts and ideas. So, perceptions, emotions, and thoughts are the manifested world. So, what can you perceive? You can perceive objects and beings. So, basically, everything you can see, anything that you can feel, anything that you can think is the manifested world. Okay, clear? So, what is he saying? I am the unmanifested, all pervading in this manifested world. Okay, clear first line? First line should be clear because first line he just made one introductory statement. There's lots coming from here. Matstani sarvabhutani na chaham teshvastitaha. Matstani, in me, sarvabhutani, right? Because I'm the all-pervading. So, like India says, all the cities are in me. Now I'm frightened to give any examples of wave and ocean, ghost and post and waking and dream state. So no examples of these anymore. Okay, so India, hope this is okay. All the cities of India are in India. Na chaham teshvastitaha. But I am not in them. Okay, now here is the next first complication that he said. They are all in me, I am not in them. You don't say India is in Bombay, you say Bombay is in India. You don't say India is in New Delhi, you say New Delhi is in India. I hope this verse is clear. The part is in the whole is not referred to being in the part. I hope so much is clear. Let's go to verse 5. We have to do all these verses together so you'll understand where he's headed. Okay, first verse 4 is clear. Now let's do verse 5.
Rangi, I have a question regarding this.
Yeah, go ahead, Omkar. I can't even tell you, you can't ask because you just won't show us the verse, then we can't continue. So you have full monopoly. Go ahead.
So when he says, at that level, where is the duality? Why would he say this? I am not in you, and you are in me, but I am not in you.
Why would he say it, meaning?
Why is the duality being conveyed here?
You see now, it's going on now. This is not the end of the story. There's lots he's going to say now. The reason to understand these verses in a proper flow of thought, we always talk about why flow of thought is so important. It's not just about picking up various points. You must know the flow of thought. You must know what a speaker, an author, a poet, what is the full version. Then you can understand what is this person really trying to say. If you just take out sentences, then that's when all the confusion keeps starting. So that's why let's do all these verses together so that you can see where he's, like, what is he doing with this? The reason for doing that is because most people pick out one sentence, just like Omkar is doing now. He's saying, okay, now why this sentence? And then, you can take off on that if he so desires. But if you see it in sequence, then it will become very clear what he's deriving at. Okay, so verse 4 told us that I pervade everything, right? So therefore, everything is in me. You cannot say I'm in it. Okay, in that sense. So that's verse 4. Now let's see what's verse 5. Omkar, let us do this whole context, and if you still have a question, then we can take it up. Na cha matstani bhutani pakshame yogamaishwaram bhuta brunna cha bhutastaha mamatma bhuta bhavanaha na cha matstani bhutani Pashame yogamaishwaram bhuta brunna cha bhutastaha mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. Verse 4 said, I pervade everything, all beings are in me, I am not in them. Verse 5 says, Nacha matstani bhutani, nor do beings dwell in me. Behold my divine yoga. Bringing forth and supporting beings, myself does not dwell in them. Here's where the trouble starts. Last verse, very clear. I pervade everything, everything is in me, I am not in anything. Next verse, nothing is there in me. Hare Bapre, make up your mind, you feel like saying to him. Are we in you or are we not in you? Can you just tell us once and for all? But if you watch this beautiful sequence of thought, see how he builds it up to bring us to where he wants us to be. Okay, so first step is God pervades everything. We all live in the medium of God, just as fish live in the medium of the ocean, just as cities exist in India. We all exist in God. We live in the medium of God. Then he says, beings do not dwell in me. What does that mean? Beings do not dwell in me. Is he trying to say we are divorced from God? What is it he's trying to say? That's why you use the example of Vedanta, the most famous example of Vedanta, which is the snake and the rope. In the first case, the rope says, I pervade the snake. Okay, the snake lives in me. Correct, right? The second case, the rope says, no, the snake doesn't live in me. Because there is no snake. There's only a rope. Is anybody not familiar with the snake and rope example? Because people keep joining us, I am never sure whether... Is there anybody new in the class today who's never, or anyone who has not heard the rope and the snake example?
I haven't. Usha.
Usha? Oh, okay.
Yes.
1 second. Okay. So the rope and the snake example in Vedanta is one of the most popular ones. The example is that there is a rope lying in the dark. Okay, and you look at it and you think of it as a snake. You don't see the rope, you believe it's a snake. And so you get frightened of that snake and whatever else happens out of it. And all the troubles generated by the snake, that illusory snake that you have seen on the rope, are removed as soon as you see that it is a rope and it's not a snake. So that's the role of knowledge, just to make you see that it's a rope, it's not a snake. Okay, so this is a very, very famous example. Vedanta is known by this particular example. Now, using that example, you understand what he's talking of here. First, he says, let's take it from the rope's point of view. First, the rope says, I pervade the snake. Like wherever you're seeing the snake, I am there. In the unmanifested form means you're not seeing the rope, you're seeing the snake. Okay, the snake lies in me. I don't lie in the snake. Okay, this is what he says in the beginning. Then he says, but the snake doesn't lie in me, nor do beings dwell in me. Because whatever you're seeing is your own mental projection. It's not there. How can you say it exists in the Lord? How can you say we exist in the Lord? I mean, you don't exist. So why are you talking about where you're existing?
But Janki ji, it's so hard to conceive that we don't exist.
Yes, of course.
How do we come to terms with it?
You can't. Because the fact is, Deepa, that you do exist. You can never accept that I don't exist. That is impossible because that's false. So you exist. Has it got slightly worse now? You exist. There is no debate on your existence.
Okay.
But you believe that you are Deepa. That belief is what is incorrect. Every one of us knows from the bottom of my heart that I exist. I am there. Not you and I, but everybody. The worm crawling on the ground knows that I am there. Right? The monkey jumping on the tree says, I am here. The cockroach running around thinks, I am here. That I amness is there in everyone. That I am cannot ever be denied. But what I claim to be, see, we are not denying that there is something there. What we are denying is that there's a snake there.
So it's as good as snake not there.
Yes, that is correct. That's exactly what he said. Nacha matstani bhutani. In me, beings don't exist. The snake is not there. Correct.
So which means it's as good as we are not existing.
No, how is that? You are
Like
saying the snake is not there. You're not saying the rope is not
nothing
there.
is there. Okay, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Janki ji,
Mhm.
would it be right to say that I am not there because this I is actually nothing else but God? So,
Yeah, you could say that. You could put it anyway. But the idea is that you must not misunderstand the reality. You're seeing you must know that there is something there, but it is not that which you are seeing. As long as you get that, you can put it in any word. You can say, only God exists, I don't exist. You can say that. Or you can say, only I exist. That also is correct. You can put it in a million ways, and he's about to put it in a million ways. So if you all are going for a full toss, don't worry about it. That's exactly what he's trying to do to us. He's just confusing us so that we understand the concept clearly. So go with it for some time. Okay. Hold your questions right up to the end so that he's built up his whole thought. So verse 4 said, I pervade the world in the unmanifest form. All this that you see exists in me. I don't exist in it. Verse 5 says, and it doesn't exist in me, just as the snake does not exist in the rope. Because it doesn't exist. What are you talking about? Where it exists? There is no snake, there's only a rope there. Pashyame yogam aishwaryam. See this fantastic yoga of mine. See this fantastic illusion of mine. See this divine yoga. It's like this divine yoga. It's divine because God is there. That's why it's divine. Why are we all divine? Why is this whole world divine? Because God is there. Bringing forth and supporting beings. Ab chalo aa gaya wapas. Bringing forth and supporting beings. How is that even possible now? You just told us we're not there. Now you're saying I'm bringing you forth. Bringing forth and supporting beings. Myself does not dwell in them. Even though you see these beings, they have been brought forth by the self, as it were. People see God as a creator. God, he cannot be a creator. God cannot be a creator because creation implies action. Action implies
Vasanas.
desires, correct. You cannot give God vasanas and desires. And there can be no action without vasana and desires. So therefore, God cannot be a creator. Right? Yet he says, bringing forth and supporting beings. So how can we understand this now? What he means is, take the example again and listen carefully. You all like really full toss verses, so please listen carefully. The rope is saying, I bring forth and support the snake that you see. In other words, had there been no rope over there, could you have seen it as a snake? You can't. So I bring it forth because I'm there, because something exists. There exists the possibility of it not being seen as it is. So because I exist, this thing exists. That's what rope says. And I support it because I'm there. So I am the truth, the reality, supports all the misunderstandings. The misunderstanding takes place because there is a reality, right? Myself does not exist in them, meaning that, but they are not the reality. They've got nothing to do with the reality. The snake really does not exist.
Jankiji, can I ask you something?
Please.
When he says beings do not exist, means when we say I we mean the body, mind, and intellect. When he says I exist everywhere, means we are all Brahman, but since we are not the enlightened one, we see everyone as a body, mind, intellect, as an entity, and not everything as pure consciousness. Is that what it is meant? I only exist and beings do not exist?
Yes, I only exist is like the rope saying, only I exist, the snake doesn't. So Brahman says, only Brahman exists, all these beings, all this world, all the samsara which you see, does not exist.
So since we are not enlightened, we just see body, mind, intellect and not see the pure consciousness.
Yeah, don't say that since we are not enlightened, say that because we are suffering from a colossal misunderstanding.
Okay, that's better. Yeah.
Because enlightenment is our natural state. That's the truth.
Okay.
What is enlightenment? Enlightenment means you know the truth. That's the natural state. So we are away from the natural state. We are misunderstood. We don't have to gain enlightenment. We have to remove the misunderstanding.
Okay. Get it. Thank you.
All right. So I hope you're following the flow of thought. Brahman pervades everything in the unmanifested form, just as the rope pervades the snake in the unmanifested form. The beings exist in Brahman just as the snake exists in the rope. But the rope cannot be said to be existing in the snake. Then he says, but the snake does not exist in me. Because there is no snake, so how can it exist in me? Look at this great divine illusion of mind. Look at this great yoga of mind. Look at this strange combination. It's a divine yoga because God is there. That's why divine. Then he says, bringing forth and supporting. Again, see how many times he's contradicting himself. But none of this is contradicting because it's all saying it's all correct. Every statement is correct. It just sounds incorrect, but it is all correct. Bringing forth and supporting beings. Now, this is again a contradiction because he said there are no beings. So how, if there are no beings, how are you supporting them? It means that the reality, because something exists, there exists the potential of not knowing it for itself. And therefore, The Lord is said to be the creator. It's like saying that the snake is the creator of the rope, in the sense that had that rope not been there, how would you have thought of it as a snake?
So, ma'am, this Surender, I have a question. You said that God is not the creator, but if you look at verse 7, it says that, O Kauntiniya, at the end of the time cycle, all being enter my Prakriti at the beginning of a kappa, I bring them forth again.
Surender, don't look at verse 7. Look at verse 5. Understand verse 5. Then we will worry about verse 7. Why does everybody's mind race ahead? Please follow this line of thought. If you don't, I'm repeating the line of thought 1,000,000 times, but you're looking at something else. Then when we reach verse 7, that will not be comprehended because all of this was not comprehended. Why are you people rushing here and there? These few verses are difficult verses. Okay, I'm stopping all questions around these verses because first finish the line of thought and then you can ask your question, because it's complicated as it is without your mind rushing here and there and everywhere. Verse 4. Okay, starting again. Verse 4. The Brahman pervades everything in the unmanifested form. Don't bring it on the screen, Omkar. It just distracts. Pay attention to the concept. Verse 4 said, everybody should be having their books by now. I don't know why everybody wouldn't have their books by now. If you don't have your book, please acquire one. If you're attending a class and you're attending one, relatively seriously at least, then everybody requires the text. How are you doing a study program without a text? Whichever class you're attending, please make sure you have the text. Now, don't please anybody ask me how to acquire the text. You have ways to find that out. But please make sure you get the text. Okay. Verse 4 said, Brahman pervades everything in the unmanifest form, just as the rope pervades the snake in the unmanifest form. The rope exists in the snake. Okay. Then he says, no, the rope does not exist in me. Because the snake does not exist in me. Because the fact is, there is no snake. Where is it going to exist? Then he says, bringing forth and supporting the snake, the rope does not dwell in them. Now, why does he say the rope brings forth the snake? The rope doesn't bring forth the snake. Then what happened? Because this rope exists, you can misunderstand it as the snake. When Mr. Banerjee exists, you can misunderstand him to be Mr. Chatterjee. But if he doesn't exist only, if there is no one there, then how can you call somebody Mr. Chatterjee? So therefore you say Mr. Banerjee is the cause of Mr. Chatterjee. Because the rope is there, you say it is the cause of the snake. Because Brahman is there, it is the cause. It brings forth this multitude of illusions. Because the desert is there, you can misunderstand it as the mirage. So you can say the desert brings forth the mirage. Only if the desert is there will the mirage come. There's no desert, how will a mirage come? In your room at the moment, you're not seeing a mirage. At least I hope not. You're seeing only what's going on, right? Okay. Verse 5 clear. Now let's go to verse 6 because it follows this whole flow of thought. Yatha kasha sthito nityam vayu sarvatra go mahan tatha sarvani bhutani mastani tyupadharaya yatha kasha sthito nityam vayu sarvatra go mahan tatha sarvani bhutani mastani tyupadharaya. To make sure that we have understood what he is talking about, he gives us a simile in this verse. He says, Yatha kasha stito nityam. Akasha means the space. Yatha akasha stita nityam vayuhu. Vayu, wind, is always in akash. It's always in space, right? How does the air move? It moves in space. Tatha sarvani bhutani matstani upadharaya. Upadharaya iti upadharaya. Know this, know what? Just as the wind exists in space, so too do all beings exist in me. Vayuhu Mahan, the great Vayu. Great Vayu means what? No matter what tornado, what storm, what, I don't know, whatever it comes up with, tsunami, whatever storm there is, it always exists in space. So whatever magnitude of things you may imagine, whatever's the greatest, the best, and I don't know, whatever you can imagine, it all simply exists in the self. In other words, the self is the greatest. Whatever is the highest you can think in terms of physical things. Mount Everest, that's too small. The galaxies, the cosmos, whatever is the greatest, the biggest, the best you can think of, it exists in the self. Yatha Mahan Vayu Akasha Stitaha, as the great wind is Stitaha, is based, is placed in the Akash, in space, so too do all beings exist in me. So think of the cosmos, all of it, all the galaxies, everything. It exists in them. It's emotional. Think of the highest, the greatest, the best emotion you can think of. Exists in them. What's the highest reach of intellectual thought that a man can go to, or any being can go to? Exists in Brahman. So as the Mahan Vayu, Akasha Stitaha, is all based in the Akash, so too is every manifestation based in the self. Tatha sarvani bhutani matstani upadharaya. Iti upadharaya, notice what? Just like that, everything is based in me. It's like saying, however horrible you see the snake to be, know that it is based in me. Now, what is the important thing about this example is, imagine a tornado. I don't know, the world's worst storm. A worst storm in the world is not on India, on Earth isn't much. Imagine the worst storm in Jupiter. You know that Jupiter has terrible storms over there. And even if asteroids go in, Jupiter just swallows it. I mean, it makes no difference to Jupiter. It's massive, no? And they have massive storms, and they have that, I don't know if you're for that whirlwind or whatever it has over there. All that massive storm and agitation, where is it? Imagine the furnace of the stars. Where is it? It's in Brahman. Can you imagine? In that furnace of the stars, the heavy elements are created. Actually, out of nothing, as it were, heavy elements are created. Such a massive thing going on there. Where does it exist? It exists in Brahman. And all that heat and all that it does over there, does it burn Brahman? No matter what the storm is, Akash stays unaffected. No matter what goes on at any level, the self stays unaffected. Now, why do you think he put this verse in? Because maybe Arjuna, like you, are thinking, okay, he's telling us all this, but इसका practical use क्या है? मैं क्या करूँ इसके साथ? Suppose you're thinking that thought, that he's drawing your attention to the magnitude, excuse me, to the magnitude of this thing. Just as space is not affected by the huge furnace of the stars. Can you imagine our own sun? It's just an average star, but space is not affected by that heat. You take some fabulously big star. What is the biggest star? What is its name?
Gayatri in Hindu.
Dhruv Tara.
No, that's the pole
Jupiter.
star. It's a very small
Sun.
star.
Sun is a star. Sun itself is a big star.
Yeah, it's a very average
Jupiter.
star. It's not,
Jupiter is the biggest. Guru is the.
Jupiter is a
Jupiter
planet.
is a planet.
Okay, yeah. Yes. It's the biggest planet.
Which is the biggest star, and it begins with an A. No physics.
Andromeda?
That's a galaxy.
Okay.
It's a
Sirius.
Huh?
Sirius.
Arundhati.
No, Arundhati is a very small star.
Google says it's Pistol Star.
Which one?
Pistol.
Pistol.
Sirius.
Alpha Centauri.
Alpha Centauri is the one that's close to us. That's not a very big star. The biggest is, it's a massive star, and it's going to soon become it's going to collapse. It's so big. And nobody here is interested in astrophysics. Okay, so whatever. It's a huge, imagine.
The Pistol Star, according to Google, yeah.
I am not familiar with this one. Piston, Piston.
P-O-L, Pistol. Pistol Star.
Piston, rather than
Yeah.
gun?
Yeah.
Oh, not familiar.
UY Scooty.
Huh?
There's another UY Scooty that is the largest.
Which one?
UY Scooty.
UY Scooty. Okay, I'm being introduced to new stars. Obviously, this is after my time. But whatever is the biggest star, and whatever is that heat it generates, can you imagine what kind of heat it generates? We can't stand out in India in the midday sun. Can you? And our star is a small average fellow. He's not a big guy. And a fantastic thing. What heat it generates? But does it have any effect on space? Space is the same. Similarly, no matter what problem your life is going through, and no matter what excitement your life is going through, you stay the same. It has not affected you. Even when you are crying and sobbing, even when you're cheering and dancing, you have not been affected. Yatha kasho, yatha akasha, nityam vayu, sarvatra go mahan. Yatha akasha stitaha vayu mahan. As the vayu is stita in the akash, so are all the perceptions, emotions, and thoughts stita in you. Don't say in Brahman, say in me, because then you begin to understand what he's talking about. If all the disturbance of the suns cannot disturb space, then how can these perceptions, emotions, and thoughts disturb me? Can't be done. As the mighty wind moving everywhere, rests ever in space. It rests in space. It's always there. Even so, know that all beings rest in me. We'll continue next time.
Hari Om Janki ji. Thank you.
Hari Om Janki. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hari Om.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janki ji.
Hari Om.
Yeah.
Hari Om Janki ji.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janki ji. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Janki ji.
Thank you, Janki ji.
Thank you, Janki ji.
Hari Om. Thank you, Janki ji.
Hari Om.
Thank you, Janki ji.
Hari Om Janki ji.